Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Dr. Cortez. For the lesson, subject Assessment of Learning 1, we are now in Lesson 12, Assessment of Data, Statistical Measures, and Interpretation of Data. Sa ating topic for today, and once again, I am your business doctor, Doc Rich. And let's go to topic. And for today, here are the topics. And later on the learning outcomes, I will take responsible for the topics. We have 7 topics for today. And the learning outcomes. So after the lesson, these are the things that you are capable of doing. We have 4 learning outcomes. Sample transform at the end of the lesson. May be able to transform raw assessment data into meaningful insights for improving student performance, instructional effectiveness. And those are the outcomes. Let's go to the topic. Why assessment data is important in learning, not only assessment but the data. Assessment of data yung ating topic for this one. So bakit nga ba important ang mga data na ating ina-assess? Well, data provides a clear snapshot of what students like you guys, your students, know and what they still need to learn. So through data, we can know if, example, one student got 40%. In the future, he should improve on that percent. So one benefit is driving instructional decisions for us. For example, through data, we can have targeted adjustment. Teachers like us will use real-time data from sample formative assessment. The reason we're going to adjust yung pacing ng mga students natin. If needed, we should reteach difficult concepts or move on once mastery is achieved. And data are also important for us. For example, kung meron tayong data, it will help us identify yung mga students natin at risk. Sa una pa lang, at very early stage, we can already identify mga students na at risk. Pag ginawa natin to, it will allow us for timely supports like tutoring or specialized programs before learning gaps become insurmountable. So habang maga pa lang, we are now assessing through data yung mga gaps mga students natin para hindi masyadong lumaki yung gap. And another benefit why they are important, personalizing the learning experience ng ating mga students. We know that hindi man lahat ng estudyante ay pare-parehas, no? We know students learn at different paces, different stages. May mga data na it can make us the key to differentiated instructions. Kung meron tayong data, we can personalize the learning experience through example, flexible grouping. Teachers can use assessment results to group students by skill level. Wala kayong data nakuha, ang tendency, group natin mga estudyante, pare-parehas lang. No? So, isang grupo, may isang estudyante na pagaling, may mga hindi masyadong magaling. So, parang maiwanan. But through assessment of data, we can do flexible grouping. Example, providing advanced challenges. Kung masyadong magagaling na, no? We can provide advanced challenges for them, or some naman offering foundational support to others naman sa isang grupo, no? So that is one reason na may mga grupong advanced, may grupong hindi masyadong advanced. We can group them depende sa kanilang mga phases or bilis makaintindi. Another reason for data assessment, adaptive learning. Example, digital tools can use performance data to automatically personalize lesson difficulty. This is in tandem or with the help of tools, we can personalize lesson difficulty. And pag ginawa natin to, it will ensure every student natin that every challenge at their own level. So kanya-kanyang level, kanya-kanyang challenges, degree of difficulty na mga challenges. So those are the reasons why assessment data is important in learning. And let's move on to slide number 5. So what is assessment naman? Ating pag-aralan. Understand the role of assessment in student mastery evaluation. May gamit sa mga students, may gamit din sa ating mga assessment. So assessment of data is in learning is the systematic process of gathering. We gather data, we analyze the data, we interpret the data or information about the performance, for example, of the students. The objective to measure sample learning outcomes yung talagang na-achieve. Mga learning outcomes na niro-roll out natin sa umpisa pa lang ng ating klase. Another one, we can identify the strengths and weaknesses. Pag we found the weaknesses, we can guide instructional decisions and ultimately transforming quantitative scores and qualitative observations into actionable insights to improve yung ating mga teaching effectiveness. And sa ating mga teachers, teaching effectiveness, na why we are assessing. For the students naman, to improve student achievements. So parang may gamit sa atin yung assessment both for the educators and for the learners when it comes to what is assessment. May tatlong framework for three framework for using data. Educators or teachers, professors, we often categorize data assessment based on timing and intent. May tatlong klase ng framework. The first one is the assessment for learning. Ito yung formative. We assess because we are going to form natin mga students. Pag sinabing assessment for learning, formative, ongoing data collection. Habang tayo ay nag-lesson while the school year or the quarter is ongoing, we collect data during the instructional process. So, we're doing this one para mag-provide immediate feedback, yung real-time na feedback na habang ongoing yung semester, for example, or school year, real-time feedback. So, you can adjust teaching in real time. That is formative assessment for learning. Yung pangalawa, assessment of learning, ito naman ay summative. Pag sinabing summative, evaluation conducted at the end of a quarter, at the end of a school year, at the end of a unit. Pag sa university, sa mga college students, at the end of a term, example, prelim, midterm, or final term. The reason is to summarize what has been learned ng mga estudyante natin and assign grades or meet accountability standards. Ito yung pagkatapos ng isang school year, ginagawa natin. Yung parang pinaka-final na assessment. And the third one, assessment as learning. Ito naman is actively involving students mismo in analyzing their own data, encouraging self-reflection, self-assessment, or self-reflection. The goal is to build metacognitive skills sa ating mga estudyante. So once again, assessment for learning, formative, assessment for learning, summative, and assessment as learning involving the students in the reflection. Okay, and let's move to the next one, slide number 6. Now, slide number 6, types of assessment data. We have quantitative. You should understand the different tools, different data types, quantitative data, not tools, but different types of data, quantitative, qualitative, formative, and summative data. So let us divide them, example, by form. How the data is measured, no? That is by form. So by form, our classification is it's either quantitative or qualitative data. Quantitative, numerical, no? Numerical information that we can count, we can measure, for example, number of absences. But that is data na kaya ng absence ng estudyante. Quantitative data, the class size. So whole numbers that can be broken down, no? That is what we call the discrete quantitative data. The other type of quantitative data, the continuous values within a range that can include decimals. Example, the GPA ng mga students natin. Test taking time. So ano to? Infinite. Kumbaga, dire-diretso siya, no? We can, example, pag sinabi nating GPA, ano yan, iba-iba, no? Because of the decimals. The number of time, example, test taking, that is also continuous or infinite. So those are the quantitative data, no? Discrete and continuous. The other one, under the form by form, we can clarify data. It's the first one is quantitative and this one is the qualitative. Qualitative descriptive, non-numerical is info that provides context. For example, nominal, no? Labels with no inherent order, gender, nationality. That is nominal. Wala sa pagkakasunod-sunod. Pag sinabing ordinal qualitative data, samples are data with a clear rank but no fixed numerical distance. Examples, basic or advanced or class rank. Those meron siyang ranking. That is ordinal qualitative data. And we can also classify data. Sorry about that. We can also qualify data by function. If by function, we have two types here, the formative data. So collected during the learning process. So we are consistent na pag sa formative during the learning process. Providing immediate feedback kasi real time. For example, yung exit tickets, quizzes. Exit tickets yung pagkatapos ng klase. And before they go out, before they exit the classroom, you will ask the students, what did they learn during the day? Or what are your takeaways during the day? Then, pag may sumagot, okay, sige, exit the classroom. The next student, sumagot. Ibig sabihin yan, may estudyanteng walang takeaways o walang nakuha, na-retain during the day, o hindi makakalabas o late silang lalabas because the answers will serve as their tickets to go out. That is being done every day, no? I do that sometimes. And the other one, the quizzes are examples as well of formative data kasi they are ongoing during the sem. And we have the summative data collected naman at the end of the unit, at the end of the school year, at the end of the quarter, end of the term, midterm, prelim, the final terms sa university. Example of summative data, final exams, of course, that is given, that is, sa word pa lang, final. final exam, final requirements, standardized test. And we also have those diagnostic data. Diagnostic data gathered before. Pag diagnostic, data gathered before the term. Pag formative, gathered during the term. Pag summative, gathered at the end of the term. No? Sa mga diagnostic data, baseline info gathered before instruction to identify existing knowledge or misconception. So para siyang pre-test. You're testing if what is the level of your learnings. Marami namang alam sa isang subject na ituro pa lang o talagang zero knowledge. Meron tayong mga interim data. We also call this as the benchmark data. Periodic to, no? Checks throughout the year to track progress toward long-term goals. We can have this one weekly, monthly, periodic exams, or interim. So those are the types of assessment data. Let's go to slide number 7. Okay, so this is about sources of assessment data. Common naman mga test quizzes, no? They are common, but sources of assessment data are the diverse channels na pinanggagalingan, no? Na ginagamit natin as evidence of student learning. This can be sourced out from sample primary direct evidence. Kung tayo talaga yung nakakita, tayo nagpa-quiz, tayo nagpa-test, direct evidence or primary. Or data can also be sourced out through secondary sources. Ito naman yung analyze or contextual info, hindi galing sa atin directly, no? So, they provide a comprehensive view of progress. Example ng mga primary sources of data ng ating mga learners, ito yung mga direct evidence, no? Providing first-hand, there is the keyword first-hand info about what a student knows and can do. Sa ating mga klase, example, classroom assessment, yun, quizzes, no? Very obvious, quizzes is as a classroom assessment is direct or primary source. Yung kanilang mga student work products, projects, portfolio. Pag sa mga PE naman, physical education performance tasks like live demonstration or drills. Those are primary. Observations then is also qualitative data na nakukuha natin. Standardized test, no? Example, sa mga entrance exam, for example, standardized yan or national achievement test, national secondary achievement test. Yung kapanahunan meron kami NCEE, National College Entrance Examination. Yung elementary naman kami, meron kaming mga achievement test, parang lahat ng schools pare-pareho yung exam. So, standardized. So, yung mga sources, no? Mga sources ng ating mga data, primary data. Pag secondary naman, ito yung mga nanggaling sa ibang tao na hindi tayo nagpa-exam. Example, isang school may result ng examination. So, or yung DepEd, for example, na nagpa-exam lahat ng students. Tapos kinuha natin yung data. Those are secondary data. Kasi hindi tayo nag-initiate ng exam or quizzes. So let's go to the next slide. We are now in slide number 8. Teaching informed by data. Maganda yung we are teaching using data. And instead of just guessing, no? Mga teachers na unclear sa mga progress, frustrated. Samantala mga teachers successful, data-driven, data-based ang kanilang assessment. So the core difference, iba yung precision versus perception. Pag using data, precision. yung teacher, no? Pero pag not using data, perception lang, mas okay naman yung precision versus perception. Mas okay na gumamit ka ng data kesa ng hula. So, you can compare example, teaching by guesswork, ng hula lang, intuition, versus teachers using data or informed by data. Example, pagdating sa pag sa speed, mga teacher na nanguhula, mabilis. Split second classroom adjustment pag guesswork, no? Pero mga teachers na teaching informed by data, gumagamit ng data, can be slower due to collection of data, analysis of time. Mas mabagal, no? Pag teaching using data. Pag sa accuracy naman, pag yung teacher is perception lang or guesswork, of course, prone to human bias. Pag they can commit mixed mistakes, whiteness, or understanding. Example, isang estudyante, tahimik lang. Yan ba ay nakakaintindi or hindi? Pag guesswork ang ginamit natin, the teacher will assume kapag tahimik ang estudyante, it means understanding. Pag guesswork ang ginagamit niya. Pero pag gumagamit ang data and teacher, pagdating sa accuracy, no? Objective. Hindi sa nag-a-assume na isang estudyanteng tahimik ay nakakaintindi na. So gumagamit siya ng mga data by objective siya, no? Pag sa response naman, mga teachers na hindi gumagamit ng data, yan, fixing problems only after they become obvious. Yon, no? Pero pa isang teacher na gumagamit ng data, proactive. Sabihin, using predictive analytics, hindi pa nangyari yung problems, yung response ng teacher, predictive. Kasi based on data, they can predict yung pwede mangyari sa estudyante. That is the reason why mas maganda yung data-based, naka-based sa data or informed by data ang isang teacher na nagtuturo. And let's move on to slide number 9. Ito yung mga ginagamit nating assessment in getting data, standardized test. Yung exam, division of city school will provide exam sa lahat ng estudyante sa capital region. So, provide measurable outcomes across various student populations. Pwede namang portfolio at the end of the year, you're going to measure the progress ng mga estudyante. We can ask them to submit portfolio to showcasing their progress and work over time. Pwede namang classroom assignments, assess understanding through real-time feedback in projects. Ang standardized test kasi, parang hindi naman siya real-time, no? Parang nag-aaral estudyante ngayon, tapos at the end of the school year, may standardized test. So, meron tendency naman na nandoon sa test, ay napag-aralan na niya 2 months ago or 3 months ago. So, medyo matagal. Assignment kasi, real-time. Yung lesson natin ngayon can be their assignment or homework at the end of the day to be submitted, for example, tomorrow or the next day. Pwede namang self and peer assessment, no? Ito yung mga type of assessment. Encourage reflection and collaborative feedback among students. Ito yung assessment as learning, no? Na tinatawag natin kanina. Yung estudyante nag-a-assess sa kanyang sarili, reflecting kanyang sarili about her progress. So, yung mga tools na pwede natin gamitin sa assessment ng ating mga students. And moving on, slide 10. Common challenges. Sa assessment, dami na mga pictures. Sa picture natin, daming workloads. Obviously, sa picture, data overload. Daming ginawang teacher. No? Misinterpretation, Misinterpretation risk. Pwede magkamali ng interpretation ng isang teacher. No? Ulit sinasabi ko kanina, pag tahimik yung estudyante, sometimes na-misinterpret natin na nakakaintindi. Yung pala estudyante, tahimik lang. So why data overload is sobrang dami. The data-rich information or syndrome. Maraming teachers yung overwhelmed by spreadsheets, numbers for numbers sake, without knowing how to, example, change their Monday morning lesson plan based on them, no? Daming numbers, talagang overwhelmed mga teachers. The reason, ayan, limited analysis time, lack of timeliness. Data is most effective when it's real time. Ang challenge dito, often the results of large-scale standardized tests don't teach teachers until months later. Kasi ang standardized test hindi naman sa real time, no? So, by the time the data is analyzed, the students have already moved. Yung result ng standardized test, hindi naman agad-agad ang binibigay sa teacher, di ba? Example, several months bago ibigay sa teachers yung result ng standardized test. So, adjustment niyan, example, isang estudyante nag-take ng exam, standardized test, tapos ang result to be given after 2 months. Ibig sabihin niyan, yung adjustment para sa estudyante ay 2 months pa makikita ng teacher. Within 2 months, siguro ang estudyante nakapag-adjust na. So parang late na. Parang late yung feedback na pwedeng mangyari din sa isang estudyante. Mga challenges, misinterpretation o bias, kasi din yan no? Numbers can be misleading if not viewed in context. Example, a teacher might say drop in test scores and assume the curriculum is too hard when the data actually reflects a week of poor sleep due to community event. So, estudyante bumagsak sa test scores. Isipin ng teacher, siguro mahina yung mahirap yung subject. Yung palang reason, estudyante, personal, no? Kulang sa tulog, maraming events na ginawa sa school. So those can be a factor. Yung correlation na we don't always correlate yung low score doon sa hirap, for example, ng isang curriculum. So maling pag-correlate. No? Confirmation bias. Educators may subconsciously look for data that supports what they already believe about a student rather than letting the data challenge their assumptions. So, yung estudyante ay mababa, pero personal, alam mo yung estudyante bulakbol, no? Alam mo yung estudyante ay tamad mag-aaral. Yun ang yung assumption sa estudyante. So, pag nagkakuha ng babang score, automatic, ang reason mo, tamad talaga estudyante mag-aaral. Pero marami pang mga factors na pwedeng mangyari. Naunahan ka lang ng yung subconscious look doon sa isang estudyante. Yung impression mo doon sa estudyante ba? So those happens. So those that challenges, data overload, misinterpretation, limited time. And let's go to the next one, slide number 11. Tools and technologies for assessment of data. So modern educational technology has moved beyond simple grade books. We're not just looking sa grade books to analyze ating mga estudyante. Today's tools, marami tayong ginagamit ng mga tools now. Some tools have the ability to different system to talk to each other to create a unified view of student progress. Ang common naman yung mga learning management system, yung mga LMS. Ito yung pinaka-hub, tambayan. They serve as the hub for classroom data, tracking everything from login frequency, assignment, mastery. Example, ginagamit natin yung Canvas, Moodle. We're using MS Team or using Google Classroom. Moodle often sa isang school ko, Moodle ginagamit namin. It offers robust analytics dashboard that flag at risk students based on participation. Sa Google Classroom, makikita natin. Sa MST, makikita natin mga estudyanteng engage. Kasi pag nag-post na ng mga assignment or activity sa MST, we can determine doon pa lang ang mga estudyanteng nag-submit, nag-turn in on time, mga estudyanteng nag-viewed lang. Okay? Pero mga estudyanteng hindi man nag-view doon sa uploaded activity. So doon makikita natin mga tatlong klaseng estudyante. Hindi man lang nag-view o mababa ang grade, for example. Meron naman nag-view, may nag-seen naman pero walang hindi na-submit. So parang gitna ng kanyang grade. Ang pinakamataas, based on the LMS engagement, yung mga estudyanteng nag-submit ng grades. So, we can learn from that time. Or sa ating mga MST Meet, we can determine mga estudyante kung ilang oras silang nasa loob ng ating meeting. Kasi lumalabas din yung mga login time ng ating mga estudyante. And aside from the learning management system or LMS, some tools sa ating ginagamit, the formative assessment and interactive tools. Example, gumagamit ako ng Kahoot sa aking mga quizzes sa university. Ang ganda kasi siya kasi interactive. Makikita mo estudyante yung scores nila, kung sino yung top 1 sa ladder. Makikita nila doon kung sino yung maraming tamang sagot na sunod-sunod. At siyempre mayroong pinaka top sa may podium, may podium silang top 1, second runner up, third runner up. May ganun sa Kahoot. They like this one kasi interactive, tapos hindi siya traditional. Of course, aside from the Kahoot, meron pa tayo ibang pwedeng gamitin. Marami interactive. I have a folder, for example, na puro interactive games. Ang laman ng folder na yun. So, nagagamit. Okay, and let's go to number 12 slide. Statistical measures in assessment. In data assessment, statistical measures provide a mathematical proof behind educational trends. So, yung data is mas useful siya pag ginagamitan natin ng statistical tools. Example, pag may mga statistical measures na ginagamit, it will help us as educators move beyond look at individual scores. Hindi na individual scores natin tinitingnan, kundi yung group. Ibang comparison ng isang individual sa group o yung performance based mo ng group ng isang klase. Yan magandang tingnan. You want to know how the whole group is performing and how reliable those scores actually are. Sa measurement, of course, we can measure, for example, tatlong categories: central tendency, the mean, the average, variability, mga relative position. So anyway, we're going to discuss one by one mga statistical measures or tools na ginagamit natin sa ating mga classroom. So we're going to move to slide number 13. The importance of statistical measures sa ating mga classroom assessment. Statistical measures play a crucial role in education. It provides us insights, hindi lang sa score but on the progress, performance ng isang estudyante. What is good is they help us educators interpret data. Effective interpretation. Example, turning numbers into meaningful insight. Not just numbers but insights wherein we can help improve yung performance ng ating mga estudyante and of course, improving our teaching strategy. So, dalawa yung purpose, why we are using statistical tools. Improve performance of students and improve our teaching methodology or strategies. So, ito yung pag meron kang mga numbers, mas maganda kang meron kang, if you want to filter out yung mga sobrang daming scores, no, into a clear story. Pag wala kasing statistical measures, mga teacher, they are just looking at a listahan lang mga pangalat numbers yan, no? Pero pag ginamitan natin ng mga statistical tools, diagnostic check, for example, we can measure, we can broke down into 4 areas, no? Example, if we're using statistical tools, one benefit, we are moving beyond the average. Kasi may mga tools na mean or average. For example, pag di gumagamit ng average or mean, the biggest mistake sa mga prop are just relying on the mean. Matalang maraming tools ang pwede nating gamitin aside from the mean. Example, we can use standard deviation, provide necessary nuance na. Example, itang problem. May dalawang section ka. You have 2 classes. 2 classes could both have a mean score of 75%. Section 1 example, Section A and Section B. Ang score nila or ang mean or ang average ng kanilang mga score sa mga estudyante ay 75%. Now, pag you will just rely on the mean or on the average sa parehong 75, you will conclude parang pareho lang sila. But our statistical insight, no? Class A has a low, ang nangyaring totoo, no, on the background. Class A or Section A has a low standard deviation. Sa Class A kasi, example, everyone scored between 70 to 80%. Section A, 70 to 80%. Average, 75. 70 to 80%, average is 75. That is for Section A. Sa Class B naman, meron silang high standard kasi sa Class B, yung kalahati nakakuha ng 100. Yung kalahati nakakuha ng 50. Of course, the average is 75. So, ang average or may parehong 75, pero magkakaiba ang kanilang deviation. Yung isa, 70 to 80. Parang okay, di ba? Sa Class B, 50 to 100. So, parang pangit kasi parang kalahati naka 100, kalahati naka 50. Holding average ay parehong 75%. Now, the importance. Pag alam mo yung deviation na ganito, no? Gumamit ng standard deviation, importance, you would teach these 2 classes completely differently. Yung Class A is ready to move forward together kasi 70 to 80% ang kanilang scores. Yung Class B naman, kalahati ay 700, kalahati ay 100, kalahati ay 50. Pero parehong average 75. Sa Class B, requiring more intensive small group intervention. So, parang mas tututukan mo yung Class B, kasi kalahati 100, kalahati 50. Average 75. So, parang mas mahina yung Class B. Kasi gumamit ka ng standard deviation, hindi lang yung mean. Kasi pag tumingin ka sa mean, parang 75 yung average. Ano naman reason bakit hindi lang yung mean yung ating ginagamit? We are moving beyond the mean. We are moving beyond the average. So may mga tools na pwede nating gamitin. Example, so let's move to number 14. Slide number 14. Ito yung mga types of statistical measures or tools na ating gagamitin. Aside from the mean, of course, ang common naman is the mean, the central tendencies tools like the mean, the median, the mode, that summarizes data behavior. Meron namang variability na mga example, mga yung range, variance, standard deviation. Meron namang we know the shape, we want to know the shape, the skewness and kurtosis. Ito naman, examining distribution, patterns, and outliers. So yung mga mini-measure na ating mga statistical tools, no? The central tendency, variability, shape. So let's move to the next slide. We are going to discuss one by one mga tools na ating gagamitin. The first one is, of course, the most common, the understanding the mean concept. So the mean simply means the average. No? Pero yung average na tawag nating average. Calculated by adding all scores. Very simple. We add all the scores and divide by the total number of scores. Example, may 10 estudyante. Nakakuha ng 75, 85, 90, 85, 75, 83. So we add all those scores. In the total, divided by 10. Kasi 10 estudyante. So, pag-average, ito yung representing the balance point of the data. Offering valuable. Yung average sa mga scores nilang 10. Yan yung mean. Offering valuable insights into overall performance. Pinaka-simple, pero sabi ko kanina, it is not always the mean natin ginagamit. Kaya sabi natin, we go beyond the mean kasi sometimes the mean is misleading. So, gagamit pa rin ibang mga statistical tools or measures. So, the mean, that is the average, no? The best for overall class trend. You want to know the overall class trend, so that is the mean. But we can also use the median. Pag sinabing median, the middle value. Ito naman ay best for when a few students have extremely high or low scores. Kaya we are using median. Pag sinabi naman natin yung mode, ito yung pinakamadalas na score na nangyari. The most frequent score. It identifies the most common level of mastery or mistake. That is the mode. Example, sa 10 estudyante, ang pinakamaraming score ay 75%. So 5 ang nakukuha ng 75%. That is the mode. 75. So, pag sinabi naman nating range, so the distance between the highest and the lowest score. Example, sa 10 estudyante, ang pinakamataas 98. Ang pinakamababa ay 75. Okay, so if we're going to get the range, that is 98 minus 75, so the range is 23. So the distance between the highest and the lowest score. Standard deviation naman shows how student scores differ from the mean. Gaano kalayo yung score ng mga estudyante sa mean? Baka masyadong malayo, masyadong malapit. This is important kasi nga, a high deviation, yung masyadong malayo sa mean. No? A high deviation suggests you need to differentiate instructions. Hindi lang isang klase instruction kasi masyadong maraming malayo sa mean. Pag sabi skewness, in simpler term, it tells an educator whether their students' scores are clustered at one end of the scale. Example, sinong pinakamarami? Yung mas marami ba sa bandang lowest or mas marami bandang highest? That is what we call the skewness. Okay, so kaya nga sa ating mga statistical tools, the first one, the most common is the mean. Understanding the median concept as well is important. The median represents the middle score when data is ordered. Ang mean, average. Ang median naman, iba to eh. Example, 10 estudyante, ang score ay 81%, 82%, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, and 100. Ano yung gitna? Example, ang gitna ay 85. Yan ang median. So the median represents the middle score when data is ordered. Pag inayos natin mga data natin from highest to lowest, 81 to 99%. Yung gitna. Yan ang median. Iba naman yung average, di ba? Ang average ay dinidivide, ina-add natin lahat, then divide. That is the mean. Ang median yung gitna. So, in assessment, it helps identify the central performance level, yung pinakagitna at central. Especially in data sets with outliers that may skew the average. Okay, so the median, you have the mode. As I said earlier, the mode is the most frequently occurring na score in a data set. Example, sa 10 estudyante ulit, ang scores ay 81, 82, 83, 84, tatlong 84. Tapos 85, 86, 87, 89. Sa tatlong 84, sabihin, yung pinaka-common na score ay 84. Kasi tatlo natukuha ng 84. That is the mode. It helps identify trends and preferences, making it essential for understanding student performance and classroom dynamics. Okay, and after the mode, we have the range. So the range is the difference between the highest and lowest scores in a data set, providing insight into the spread of student performance. So, what is the use of the range? A larger range, mas malaking range, indicates more variability in achievement. Ibig sabihin, pag ang highest ay 99, ang lowest ay 75. So, 99 minus 75, that is 24. That is 24. 24 is ibig sabihin, ang line agwat, di ba? Ang line agwat ng 99 to 75. Yes, ang range ay 24. So, mas maliit yung number, mas maganda for the educator. Kasi pag mas maliit yung number, ibig sabihin yan, hindi masyadong nagkakaiba ang achievement ng mga estudyante. Example, if the range is only 5, example, ang highest 99, ang lowest 95. So, 99 minus 95, the range is 4. So, kanina ang range ay 24, ngayon ang range ay 4. So, mas paganda naman yung ang range ay 4. Ibig sabihin ng pababa ang range, hindi masyadong nagkakaiba ang achievements ng mga estudyante. Kasi the highest the range is, it means more varied yung kanilang mga achievements, iba-iba. Example, 24 ang type ng achievements. Pag apat lang, so apat lang ang type ng achievements. So ang ideal, no? Dapat mas maliit yung range. So let's move on to the next. In number 19, understanding variance in assessment. So variance measures how much scores spread out from the mean. A higher variance indicates more diversity in student performance. Example, ang mean or yung average ay 85. Tapos sa mga scores ay 65, 66. So masyadong malaking variance. Masyadong malayo yung variance sa mean. Mas malaking variance. Example, ang mean 85, di ba? Tapos may mga scores na 65. So ilan yung variance? 20. A higher variance of 20 indicates more diversity in student performance. So it will help the educators and the teachers identify patterns and tailor instructions. Pero pag ang variance ay konti lang, example, the mean is 85. Tapos sa mga score nila ay 84, 83, 82, 86, 87. So mapapansin mo, ang malapit ng mga scores sa mean. So ang variance hindi masyadong malaki. So okay lang, no? Kasi pag hindi masyadong malaki yung variance, no need to pattern differently yung mga teaching methodologies ng teacher. Pero pag masyadong malayo yung variance, example, 20 ang variance. Sabihin yan dapat mag-double time yung teacher para makakatch up yung mga naka 65%. Kasi ang variance sa pinagkaiba ay masyadong malaki. Ito, standard deviation din. No? Standard deviation measure how scores vary from the mean, offering insight into data consistency. A smaller standard deviation indicate scores are closely clustered, a larger one reflects greater spread. Ibang klaseng sobrang layo ng agwat ng magagaling, ng matatalino doon sa mga mahihina. Kaya klase naman na sobrang dikit yung kanilang mga intelligence. Parang lahat ay matatalino. No? Magkaiba man, kunti lang pinagkaiba ng matalino, dun sila masyadong matalino. So, ang ibig sabihin yan, yung deviation ay hindi masyadong malaki. May mga section akong ganun, no? sa university ko. Pag sila section A, papansin mo, no? Halos pare-pareho na lang scores. Mga lower section naman, mga matalino, 2 lang, 3. And the rest are hindi masyadong magagaling. Yun ang mga tinatawag natin masyadong malaki, yung deviation. Iba, magbabago ng methodology. Okay, ito doon sa mga estudyanteng nasa lower part. So I will move on to slide number 21. Understanding skewness in data. So skewness measures the symmetry. Shape to, we appreciate yung skewness pag ito'y kinagraph natin, we will see the shape. Yung asymmetrical ba of data distribution, indicating whether scores are lean to the left or lean to the right. Understanding skewness helps the teachers identify biases and of course make informed decisions for effective teaching strategies. So we're going to show example ng skewness later on, maybe later on. You will appreciate yung skewness ng mga data. Okay, sa slide number 22, title, using statistics to enhance learning. Identify struggling students. So, one of the goal of gumagamit ng statistics para malaman na pinagkaiba ng mabababa dun sa mga matataas or the deviation from the mean or from the average. So that we can identify struggling, sino sa kanila masyadong mababa, ilan ba? Marami ba yung mas marami ba yung malapit sa lowest or mas marami yung malapit sa highest? And we can customize instruction methods to meet diverse needs mga estudyante natin. Evaluate effectiveness of teaching studies for continuous improvement. So to use statistics or tools effectively, the teachers move beyond simply reporting grades. So hindi lang tayo nagre-report ng grades, we should analyze. Parang ating mga instructions are data-driven. We are not guessing. So this involves using mathematical patterns to diagnose student needs and predict future outcomes. Example, using standard deviation na binabanggit natin kanina, using skewness, teachers can determine if they should move the whole class forward or split into small groups. Pag wala kasing pag hindi ko magamit ng standard deviation or SD or skewness, akala mo lahat magagaling, no? So, lahat ay hindi ka walang gagawang intervention. Pero pag may ginamit kang SD or skewness, we can divide the class dun sa lower level and the upper level, yung mga the lower 50% and the upper 50%. So you can divide. For example, pag low deviation, hindi masyadong malaki yung pinagkaiba. Pag low deviation ng score sa mean indicates the class is learning at a similar pace. at sila ay nagkakasabay. Lahat sila ay sabay-sabay nakakaintindi kasi ang deviation ay kunti lang. If this one is the case, pag lahat ay nakakaintindi kasi mababang ang deviation, the teachers now can proceed with whole group instruction. Now, pag binaliktad natin, pag high ang deviation, gusto ng high deviation, malaki yung pinagkaiba ng score sa mean. Masyadong malayo. So, ano ibig sabihin ng high deviation? Anong pwede mong gawin? It can suggest, high deviation means, it suggests a split classroom. Hatiin natin classroom. Yung lower 50 and the upper 50. Para ibang instruction, doon sa upper 50 and the lower 50. So, lower 50, siguro more focus, more intervention doon sa lower 50. Doon sa upper 50, they can proceed with the next lesson, for example. The statistics from the Center for Digital Education show that using data to create tiered small groups, itong pwede natin gamitin. No? We can make remedy, we can enrich yung mga teachings dun sa lower 50. And significantly lead to higher growth than one size fits all. Pag malaking deviation, hatiin natin. Pag kunti lang ng deviation, tikit-tikit yung scores. So one type of lesson for all. Okay, so that is for deviation. So let's go to slide number 23. So common pitfalls to avoid relying solely on the mean can be misleading. We are consistent with this one. Ignoring data variability leads to incomplete insights. Misreading skewed data distorts through interpretation. So, ang pitfall dito, pag yung teacher ay nagre-rely lang sa mean, so that is misleading. If the teacher does not know how to read skewness, di marunong mag-compute ng deviation, yun ang common pitfalls. Example, over-reliance on the mean or the average. Minsan natatrap ka, no? Parang gusto mo lang mas mean lang yung gamitin. Yung mean kasi although we know that the mean or the average is the most common statistic. Minsan mean lang ating compute. But it is also the most easily distorted. The pitfall, for example, relying on the average to describe a class with high variability. Hindi porke mataas ang average or mean, okay na yung klase. Pag di mo tininan ng variability, ayun. Example, if half of the class scores 100% and the other half scores 50%, the mean is 75%. So if you teach 75%, if you teach to the 75% level, di ba sabi natin gitna, no? Ang average ng 100%, kalahati naka 100, kalahati naka 50. Ang average yan, 75. Now, ang tendency dyan, ang teaching mo, pang average, pang 75%. So, pag ginawa mo yan, pag sa gitna, parang turo mo neutral, pang 75%. What will happen? Maboboring yung mga nakakuha ng 100. Samantalang pag 75% ang tinuro mo, yung kalahating naka 50%, they will be overwhelmed. Kasi gitna. Yan ang pangit pag mean. Pag gumagamit tayong standard deviation. So how do you remedy? Always look at the standard deviation alongside the mean. So pag gumamit ka ng mean, sabayan mo ng standard deviation para malaman mo gaano kalayo sila doon sa mean. Para hindi ka or gaano sila kalayo sa average. Para hindi ka magtuturo ng average lang. Ipapatol mo to doon sa mga lower 50%. So ignore the average. Avoid the common pitfalls. So let's move to slide number 24. So let's have the interpretation interpretation of data. Interpretation is the bridge between raw numbers. Meron kang raw numbers na but you don't know how to interpret. So are you going to use raw numbers to be transformed into effective teaching natin? While the assessment collects the data, but this assessment collecting data, pero kulang ka sa interpretation. Pag meron ka assessment, it follows na meron ka interpretation. Ito yung intellectual processing of asking, what does this actually mean? Anong ibig sabihin ng mga data ng akin na collect? That is interpretation. Pwede mo siyang gamitin. Example, to interpret data effectively, educators, teachers like us typically look through 3 specific lenses. Tingnan natin, i-analyze natin yung data na nakuha natin sa 3 perspective. Example, the first one, interpreting the individual. I-assess natin data through the individual. There is the growth lens. When looking at a single student's data, the goal is to determine their trajectory, not just their current standing. Pag nakita mo yung score ng isang estudyante, we don't always conclude yung kanyang current standing na 75% siya, mahina. It's important or more accurate or more we can appreciate more if we're going to look at the growth, yung trajectory ba niya ng isang estudyante. That is what we call ipsative interpretation. We compare students' current score to the previous scores. Di ba naka 75 siya ngayon? Don't just interpret na siya ay mababa kasi 75 lang. Tingnan mo yung kanyang pinanggalingan. Yung pala, 2 months ago or 1 month ago, ang kanyang score ay 65%. So, tingnan mo siya ng ganun. From 65, 75 siya ngayon. So, the growth lens, no, ng isang individual. So, pag ginamit mo yung growth lens, you will now conclude, hindi pala mahina. Kasi dati, 65. Ngayon ay 75 na. So, may improvement. Ipsative interpretation. Tawag natin dyan. Okay, so, question, is this student growing even if they have not reached the passing mark yet? Ang passing, for example, 80. Pero sa 75 siya. Pero nakita mo na nag-grow siya ng 10%. Or the proficiency versus percentile, no? Interpreting example. A student might have a low proficiency score, 60%, but be in the 90th percentile for growth. Ang kanyang score, 60%. Pero, kasama sa 90% na nag-grow. O, di ba? Parang iba na yung tingin mo pag ganun, di ba? Or error analysis, looking at which questions were missed. Example, did the student miss all the geometry questions but get all the algebra questions right? This points to a specific knowledge gap rather than a general lack of ability. Magaling sa mahina sa geometry, pero magaling sa algebra. That is knowledge gap. Hindi ito yung general lack of ability kasi magaling sa algebra. Mahina sa geometry. Ibig sabihin yan yung bana ay mahina na kasi bagsak geometry pero pasado sa algebra. Do you conclude yung bata mahina? No, that is not a general lack of ability, but that is knowledge gap. Number 2, interpretation. No? Interpreting the group. Instructional lens, for example. When looking at the whole class, you are evaluating your own teaching methods. Example, we are going to use the 50-50 rule. If more than 50% of the class missed a specific concept, the interpretation is that the initial instructions was ineffective. Action, you must reteach the entire group using a different strategy. So, pagka lahat ay hindi nakuha, ibig sabihin yan, ang hindi estudyante ang may diferensya. But your strategy, hindi effective. So, don't change the student, no? Change your strategy. Kasi kalahati wala eh. Kalahati ay bagsak. Okay sana kung ang hindi nakakuha ay 10% lang. Ikalahati, ibig sabihin yan, hindi sa student ng problema. But on the methodology or strategy. So let's go to the next. Slide number 25. Quantitative versus qualitative data. Ito yung mga, hindi lang to sa research nangyayari. May mga data rin na quantitative. Example, test scores are quantitative percentage. Type data is often easier to analyze kasi objective. Mas ma-easy to interpret their insights, kanyang performance. Example, pag estudyante ay naka-85, so sa insight natin doon, above average. Qualitative data offers descriptive insights. Example, mga to. This one are subjective. Data gathered through observations, comments, and interview. So, mahirap mag-generalize pag qualitative. Isa of data enriches understanding by providing context and depth to the numerical figures or individual experience. So, sometimes hindi naman reliable always yung objective data na numbers. No? We don't know the reason behind the numbers. Meron tayong ginagawang interview or comments. Sometimes may kasamang qualitative data, comments, interview. Yung ating perception dun sa 85% or sa 75% or 65% nagbabago eh. Kasi meron ng context. May in-depth meaning na yung figures. Kaya, it is important na pag nag-research tayo, sama natin ang interview. Para meron tayong qualitative data. So understanding assessment reports requires moving past the bottom line. Not only the numbers, not only the bottom line and numbers, but the story the data is telling. Example, dapat 360 degree yung ating view sa ating mga estudyante. The 3 pillars of a report. Example, the scale scores a continuous number shows a student's absolute position in a learning continuum. Yung scores, hindi lang scores, no? Because unlike a percentage, the score can be compared year over year to see if a student is actually gaining new skills regardless of their grade levels. Quantitative. And another quantitative, the percentile rank compares the student to a national or local norm group. Nag-ranking, di ba? Example, may examination sa mga national achievement test nationwide eh. Sa mga percentile rank, ikaw ay naka-94 or ikaw ay naka-95, sometimes hindi ka pa rin pasado eh. Kasi pag sinabing hindi 85, hindi 75% ng passing, kundi sabi ng ng examiner, ang pasado ay yung upper 10 lang. Upper 10 percentile. So kahit ikaw ay mataas, example, ikaw ay naka-91, ilan sila ay naka-92. So mababa pa rin yung percentile rank. Interpretation, if a student is in the 65th percentile, they perform better than the 65% of their peers. Yan ang percentile, no? Kasi pag 65, akala mo mababa, mahina. Pero ibig sabihin ng percentile, mas magaling ka sa 65% na nag-take. So you are in the upper 35 percentile. So, ang percentile, this highlights relative your standing nationwide, for example. but not measuring your mastery of a specific content. Okay, so yung growth measure then, it is also important. Yung growth measure, sabi natin kanina, we don't rely on the individual test lang. Growth measure, it shows how much a student improved compared to their own previous score. Yan maganda sa metric teaching. Sa magtuturo ka, that is one metric na napaka-effective. Kasi, pag example, pag ang isang estudyante is student A, nakakuha ng 95 ngayon. Pero nung last month, 95 din siya. So parang walang growth. Isang estudyante, student B, nakakuha ng 85 ngayon. Last month, 75 ang kinakuha. So parang mas effective ang teaching mo doon sa student B. Because a student can be below grade level but have high growth. Mababa ang kanyang grade level pero ang kanyang pag-increase, pag-improve ay mataas. So, what does it mean? The intervention ng isang teacher is working. Kumbaga may nangyari, no? May nangyari sa kanyang ginagawa intervention, nakatulong. Kasi from 75, naging 85%. Okay, so reading reports. Understanding assessment report is crucial for educators to make informed decisions. Teachers should focus on identifying key trends and patterns within the data. It can help highlight areas of improvement. So, example, the mode. Karamihang score ay 65%. That is the pattern. So, you can highlight the areas for improvement. Or pag sa skewness naman, nakita mo na karamihan ng scores ay leaning towards the lowest. Or based on skewness, the scores of the students are leaning towards the highest score. Yan. If there is the pattern, you can do interventions. Okay, so common pitfalls. Overgeneralizing data from small sample size. Kunti lang yung sample size, nag-generalize ka na. Conclusions drawn from limited data can be misleading. So kaya nga, pag tayo nagsasample, meron tayong specific sample size, we compute the specific sample size na isa population. Example, the population of the student is 1,000. Tapos tinest mo 10 lang. So hindi masyadong conclusive, no? Pero pag the number of students is 1,000 and your sample size is 300, and that is more better conclusive. So another pitfalls, example, ignoring context in data interpretation. Contextual factors are crucial. No? Relying solely on test scores lang without relying other assessment. Confusing correlation with causation, that is not conclusive. Misinterpreting variability in data if you don't know how to read to compute deviation. So, even the best tools, no, na pwede natin gamitin on statistical measures at gaano kagaling yung ating mga tools na gamit. Ang technique dito, the way we interpret data, that is the most significant. At diyan pwedeng magkaroon ng errors sa pag-interpret ng data. Example ng mga to ensure your data leads to the right instructional moves or intervention, you should avoid these 5 common interpretation pitfalls. Kung tayo nag-interpret ng data. Aside from the mention sa ating screen, some of the pitfalls, the single point trap. The first pitfall, the single point trap. Ibig sabihin nito, pag ikaw daw ay making a major decision like moving a student to a remedial or advanced track based on a single test score. Isang test lang pinagbasehan mo. That is pitfall. May mga reason bakit mababa isang estudyante. Isang score. Okay? So, ang totoo pala, data is a snapshot, not a move. A student might have been sick, hungry. Example, yung apat na mga exam matataas naman. Yung pang-limang exam medyo mababa. Pag nagre-re ka sa pang-limang exam, that is pitfall. Kasi may mga reason. Example, gutom pa rin sa estudyante ng pang-limang quiz. May sakit pala, masampakaram na sa estudyante pang-limang quiz. Or anxious, kinakabahan. Pitfall kasi nag-rely ka sa isang single point trap. Another pitfall, confirmation bias. Example, pitfall. Itong error na pwede mangyari. Looking at the data report and only seeing the numbers that confirm what you already believe about a student. Ang totoo dyan, sa isip mo yung estudyante tamad. You might ignore the high growth score and focus only on in their low attendance. Dalawang assessment, attendance tapos score. Sabi mo, nag-focus ka dun sa attendance, mababa ang attendance. Babagsak ko na ito, mababa attendance. You forgot to see yung kanyang growth. Tumata ang kanyang growth ay tumaas siya. Sabi natin 65 siya ng una, naging 70, mababa pa rin, di ba? Pero nag-grow siya ng 5%. Pero hindi mo tingnan yung 5% na growth. Tumingin ka, kasi yung estudyante, pala absent. Kaya, ang conclusion mo, mababa na lang estudyante. Number 3, confusing growth with proficiency. Ang error, assuming a student is failing because they are below grade level. That is low proficiency. Or assuming a student is fine because they are at grade level. Failing, kasi nga, yung error ganito. Failing, estudyante, kasi nga, they are below grade level. Or magaling estudyante, kasi they are at upper level. That is the error. Ang reality yung pwede mangyari, a student far below grade level who is showing massive growth is a success story. Your interventions are working. Conversely, a high-achieving student with zero growth is red flag. Hindi porke nasa upper level ay is okay na. Kasi porke pag nasa upper level siya, wala namang growth na nangyari. That is red flag. Mas okay pa yung estudyante na sa lower level, pero ganoon siyang 5% increase sa grade. So avoid those pitfalls. Look at the growth of the student. Another error, the averaging illusion, the pitfall. Ang error ganito, averaging a student's scores across the semester to determine their final grade. Yan ang error, no? Example, ang semester June to December. Tapos ang average niya ay 70%. Yan ang error. Kumbaga, in-average mo eh. Ang totoong nangyari, yung estudyanteng yan, nung September, ay 40 ang kanyang nakuha. Pero on December, ang kanya nakuha ay 100. So imagine no? September 40, pag ng December 100, so parang biglang gumaling siya. Okay? Pero pag in-average mo yung 40 tapos 100, ang average niya 70% pa rin eh. Diba? September 40, December 100, ang average yan 70%. Ang tinitingnan mo yung average, 70%. Ito ang grade mo, 70%. Hindi mo tiningnan na nung December, 100% pala siya. Ibig sabihin yan, na-master niya yung tinuturo mo. Kaya naka 100% siya. Kaya hindi yan tiningnan mo. Kundi yung average from June to December. That is a pitfall. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Slide 28. Let's go to the tools for data analysis, essential technology, digital resources for educators. Ano pwede nating gamitin, mga general data analysis and visualization. May mga tools tayo dito, versatile tools, essential for calculating, presenting. Example, common Microsoft Excel, di ba? We're using Microsoft Excel. We're using Google Sheets, standard for quick calculations. We're using Canvas, we're using Moodle, real-time insights, no? Mga engagement natin, mga estudyante. We're using data visualization application. Example, allows educators to ask questions. You want to know the tool, both the attendance and performance ng mga estudyante natin doon sa ating platform. Example, you can ask the tool, student A ba ay marami ng absent? Ilan ang absent ng student A? Yung bang may mga estudyanteng hindi man lang nag-visit sa sa MS Team, wala man ng engagement, di ba? Pero you can ask the tool about their engagement. So data visualization. We're also using Google Classroom, di ba? We can use plagiarism sa Google Classroom. Mga estudyante sasubmit ng copy-pasted or plagiarize, ma-detect, ma-red flag kaagad sila. Okay, so those are the tools for analysis. And let's go to slide number 29, best practices. Utilize multiple sources for comprehensive insights. Combining data enriches the interpretation process outcomes. We collaborate with colleagues. We don't know everything, so we need to be coached through team discussions and continuously monitor progress or effective adjustment. We regularly review helps identify trends and changes. Focus on actionable insights from the data. Encourage reflective practice in data interpretation. And interpreting assessment data. Sabi natin, kanina pa, we look beyond the scores ng ating mga estudyante, not only single scores. Identify patterns, consider context. Sa interpretation, assessment data effectively, hindi lang raw score ating tinitinan dito. We should know the story behind the numbers. Example, effective interpretation follows a three-lens approach. Kaya sabi kanina, measuring growth. Instead of asking, pumasa ba to? Tanong natin, how far have they come? Ilan na ang kanilang in-improve, no? That is beyond the raw score. Epson analysis, di ba? Compare students' current score to their previous scores, performance. Example, estudyante, nakakuha ng 30 dati, ngayon naging 60 na siya. They are showing high growth. Kahit bagsak pa rin 60, they are showing high growth. Kasi from 30 to 60. That is how interpret data. Another one, the gap interpretation. Look at the domain scores. Geometry example versus algebra. A student might have a high overall math score but specific deep in fractions that requires a targeted interventions. So, tingnan natin yung breakdown, no? Hindi yung overall scores. Kasi misleading, nakapataas na nakuha pala sa isang subject bagsak. The group lens evaluating instruction. The data of the whole class is actually a mirror of your teaching. The 50% rule. We mentioned this earlier kanina. Pagkalahatan ng klase bagsak, the problem is the teaching methodology. Or we also analyze the skewness of the data. Pag positive ang skew, pakita natin yung skewness pala dito. Let me see. Ito skewness. The skewness of data. You're going to compute the skewness of data. At pag ganito ang lumalabas sa mga formula. The first one, the zero skewness, neutral lang siya, balance lang. Yung pangalawa, we call this the second one, the negative skewness. Negative kasi yung buntot or the tail is leaning to the left. Pag negative skewness, leaning to the left. So, ano ibig sabihin niya? Yung tail ay nasa left. Most students succeeded. The class is ready for curriculum compacting or more rigorous lessons. Pag negative skewness, yung buntot ay nasa kaliwa, that is, ibig sabihin yan, karamang estudyante ay mataas ang grade. That is for the student. No? For the teacher is now ready for curriculum compacting or advance ang curriculum or move on. Yung pangatlo naman, that is positive skewness. Positive kasi yung buntot ay nasa kaliwa, ay nasa kanan. Tail to the right means positive skewness. What does it mean? Karamang estudyante, nag-struggle, mahina. The test was slightly, maybe napakahirap, too hard yung exam. Kaya positive skewness. So, for the teacher, anong ibig sabihin nito? So, hindi pa pwedeng mag-move on. Dapat meron pang intervention, more lessons pa. Dun sa current lesson. That is how we interpret data. No? And another one, we also, the assessment lens, testing the test. Example, may mga distractor analysis na mamaya if 40% estudyante choose the same wrong answer, there is shared misconception you need to clear up in tomorrow's. Yung exam, yung may problema. The questions ang may problema. Item isang item. Example, if your top performing students got a question wrong, while the low performing students got it right. The question is likely a trick or poorly worded and should be discarded. Ano nangyari mga error sa ganito yun? Yung top performing estudyante mo, mali. Pero yung mga low performing students mo, tama. So mali yung words na ginamit siguro. Or that item should be discarded. Isang item lang. Isang question lang. Ang error dyan, yung question na yon. Hindi si general, di ba? Kasi nakuha ng iba eh. Pero matatalino din nakuha. Siguro, wrong wordings lang. Okay, so let's move to slide number 32. Okay, this one is the last slide. Visualizing data. Effective data visualization is crucial for making complex information understandable. We're going to utilize charts. Mas magandang basahin chart eh. Isang tinginan, alam natin yung result. At may mga estudyanteng they love photos. They don't love text. But they appreciate pag pictures ang ating ginagamit. So as educators, we're going to utilize charts, graph, infographics. Educators can highlight key trends and insights clearly. And such visual representations enable a more engaging sa mga estudyante natin. So, visualizing data using graph in the assessment of learning transforms raw assessment data. Samples sa mga data, scores, attendance, engagement metrics. You transform them into intuitive, actionable, visual formats. Chart, dashboards, maps, chart, histogram. So, ang reason dito, but may ginagamit natin mga visual presentation. This approach allows educators to quickly identify trends, patterns, outliers that might otherwise be hidden in large, complex data sets. So, key applications in assessment. Anong gamit? We can track student performance using visuals, graph, charts, infographics. Example, visualizations such as heat maps and dashboards help educators monitor student progress over time. Example, line graph, no? Line graph. You can monitor the progress ng estudyante. It will enable them to identify at-risk students. So, kita agad sa line, no? Kung sino mang estudyanteng pababa ang line, yung trend. Another one, the applications ng mga visuals, curriculum design and analysis. Educators can use scatter plots to find correlations between factors such as homework frequency. Kasi yung correlation, no? Correlation are like this one is sample correlation. Marami siyang dots. Pag nakita natin yung dots, sa mga dots ay naka-straight line, ibig sabihin dyan, may correlation. Yung isang variable. Example, you want to know kung may correlation ang exam scores tapos homework frequency. Kung madalas magpapa-homework, pababa bang exam? Connected ba sila? Or kung hindi ko madalas nagpapa-homework, tumataas bang exams result? Natin tinatanong kung meron silang correlation. And we can use the correlation, mga scatter graph, mga dots. The third application, we can use visuals, graph, charts in identifying learning needs. Example, heat maps can indicate a specific frequently incorrect answers on exams, helping teachers refine their focus and tailor instruction. So may mga exams na kita natin. Sa isang exam, we have 50 items. Nakita mo saan doon ang may pinakababang score. Item number 44 ba? O pag meron kang ganang visual, isang tinginan mo, di ba? Alam mo kaagad yung item na dapat mong i-refine or discard, palitan. Kasi ng item na maraming nag-commit ng errors. Okay, so I don't have any, I know that is the last slide, and I would like to thank you guys for listening sa ating lecture now, hoping that you got something from this lesson 12. And with that, I would like to thank you, all of you, at magpapasubscribe na ako sa inyo. Maraming salamat everyone. See you.